Hey, out there in the crypto world, one more time with DeFi IoT Latin America. Today we're going to bring you some news on the Helium, the news from the jungle, the Helium jungle. What's going on with Helium? What's going on with Ihub? And there's a lot of regulation coming down. We're kind of at a standby right now. Congress keeps suspending the date for voting because they want to make sure these laws pass. And in this new bill, this infrastructure bill, there's a direct attack on crypto. How's it going to affect us? Where do they think we might be able to get through and wiggle through? There's a new world computer Davos is trying to create that will actually take over the internet, so it's going to be very difficult for blockchain to even exist inside that without being centralized. Let's talk about that. What's the future hold for us? Is there hope? I think so. Let's talk about it. All right, let's jump into it. We've had a lot of Bitcoin has been like surging, pushing over that 55,000 range and pretty much holding there. What's Helium done though? Helium hasn't really been following. Why? Let's go over some things that's some really good news. Last month, September, was a really good month. The last few weeks too, we've had more news. Helium keeps striking new partnerships or in deals to actually advance the Helium network. But why is the coin going down? That's a good question. Let's go through though and see some of the things Helium is doing. And I think long term, Helium's going to show us a potential. We're still very bullish on Helium here. We're still buying and in line for more of the hotspots so we can help develop the Helium network. Let's jump into now though what we got in here with Helium updates. All right, block 29. Let's go through the emails here. September was a big month for Helium, the Helium ecosystem. Over the past few weeks, coverage accelerated by nearly 2,000 new hotspots per day, right? Yeah, they were onboarded by the People's Network a day, per day. See that? Alongside this, the network navigation into uncharted territory, greeting quite a number of firsts. The first roaming integration, the first 5G gateway shipments to customers that are going to start to be installed now, the first cellular mobile plan, which exists in over 190 countries, we'll touch on that in a bit, the first city to join the network, San Jose, California, and the first country planning a full Helium coverage. This is a country I didn't even know existed, but it's a country, and that's important. Let's jump down through here. Let's jump down in here. So, the State of IoT Asset Tracking Report. Let's just jump in this quick. Asset tracking continues to be one of the most popular use cases in the People's Network. Later, as we finish this, we're going to talk a little bit about asset tracking, not just in items or articles, but in human beings. Human beings are an asset, right? I know that some maybe think they aren't, but they are an asset in my eyes and our eyes here. The People's Network, with the global asset tracking market expected to account for nearly over 90% of all connected enterprise and industrial IoT solutions by the end of the decade. So between here and 2030, that is just like a 2030. Just that phrase just has a lot of targets there. A lot of people shooting for 2030 on certain aspects, some good and some not so good. If you have an existing asset tracking use case, if you're anticipating having one in the future, help Helium Digital Matter gain key insights. So they're asking for information. You can go on here to Helium, and this is a block 29, so Helium news update I get often actually, and so you can go in here and actually help Helium develop their tracking, their asset tracking capabilities. And we're going to go into another, for example, an example of this towards the end of the video on a we'll go into the group, a private group, something I didn't think would be possible and work, but watching the video on this yesterday, it really kind of opened my mind even more of the great possibilities that Helium can offer us. So let's go through here. New Year's, we talked about Senate, member Senate, and the roaming partnership with Senate. Here, a few weeks ago, the Helium team announced the first roaming integration on the People's Network with Senate, who operates the largest and the most dense public center carrier-grade LoRaWAN networks in the United States. through the roaming integration, connectivity is immediately extended to billions of devices from Senet's large enterprise customers across industries, including asset tracking, logistics, supply chain, and environmental monitoring. Now, let's go into this. How is that going to affect those of you in Ihub and those of you who have your own Helium hotspots? How does Senet affect us? We talked about this last week, but let's jump through this really quick here. For hotspot owners, the partnership is massive as devices from Senet customers represent over 1 billion transactions annually. It will now be able to seamlessly connect to hotspots, increasing data transfer awards. You can go and read the full announcement here at helium.blog, the IoT Evolution World. So in other words, what's going to happen with Senet is they're going to, it's going to start in major cities primero, first of all, in the United States. And what's going to happen is that they put the devices in that they'll register data and so forth in this processing, and your Helium hospital will pick this up and actually gain more rewards. Remember, there's a 35% payment in the data processing aspect of it. Okay, so let's go on here. San Jose is the first city in San Jose, California, to adopt Helium to implement, to actually provide internet to like over 190,000 people without internet in San Jose, which really surprises me. San Jose, California is not exactly an area where you have poverty. So that's interesting because pre-COVID, I don't recall driving through San Jose, and I've been there many times and just recently, and that's not an area where there's a lot of poverty. So it surprised me to have over 190,000 people without internet. Anyway, Helium now is going to form the network to make it a smart city. That's good and bad. So it shows the governments are actually welcoming Helium, which I think is going to be, as regulation comes down, we feel here at this channel that because Helium does kind of lean towards trying to adjust with the laws. Remember, Sean Hannity had that problem with Napster. So something they started out from the beginning is they want to be able to move with the governments. And that's what POC V11 is actually going to allow in some of this implementation that they're implementing now, is going to allow them to be a little flexible on the blockchain to be able to adapt to rules and regulations of certain areas, right, in countries and so forth, right? So, let's go through here some more now. This is interesting. This is fairly new right here. Norada. Norada connects elderly care. So it's another elderly care device that allows your nurses and so forth, as well as their patients, to be able to activate emergency response and so forth more quickly, right? Remember how I used to have that I used to see that little button that I had on TV that used to, you fell down and you push the little button and get help to get you up. Well, remember the difference between Wi-Fi and what LoRaWAN does. LoRaWAN is 200 times stronger for distance. And we're going to come back to a huge example of where Helium can go to and why we're bullish on Helium. Okay, network updates. The POC. Let's talk about this a bit. POC V11 activates October 18th. Well, it's been kind of being extended. So coming in this next week, so we can start looking for that this next following week and so forth. It was supposed to take place on the 4th of October. So all these rules, the changes that came out, and basically they're three, right? So what's going to happen in those three? Let's go through it. Well, one, you're going to have the antenna usage. And what that's going to mean is for your region, for antennas, if you have a DBI-12, for example, in the United States, well, technically speaking, and what our understanding is, in the United States, a DBI-12 is not legal to use. So DBI-12, you can take that baby and set it up somewhere high, and boom, you can reach a long ways with it. Apparently, what's only legal in the United States is DBI-9. Okay, so that's what we're being told. We need to verify that still. So those that have a DBI-12, DBI-15, or greater than DBI-9 are probably your power in your unit. The software is going to govern that and restrict you from actually extending more than what, let's say, if it's a DBI-9, if that is true, we've been told, that you will have the potential of like a DBI-9, the most in your area or region or in your country. And that applies to every country, right? So so it's going to be really important if you're going to try to buy a better antenna, don't buy a DBI-15 that costs twice as much as a DBI-9 does. And get your DBI-9 or your 8 or your 4. It depends. Learn what the antenna is for. Don't just go buy an antenna. That's very important. And we're going to do a video on that as well as just what antennas are used for with the new changes coming out with the POC V11. Now, you also know the POC V11 that takes you from 25 witnesses a day to 10 witnesses. So that's good and bad. I guess you could say, well, I'm not going to be able to get as much, paid as much in witnessing. Remember, that's 20%, right? So, but you got the challenger, challengee, and the witnesses. I guess the good thing is this, that you're not going to have to share as much because there's only 10 and it's random, because you can witness more during the day, but you're only going to get credit for 10 of them, right? They're obviously going to be witnessing more. They're going to be testifying where each other are, but you're only going to be able to receive credit and payment for 10 of them. So I guess the idea is that there's only 10 of you sharing that pool of helium that's being paid out for the witnessing, right? So that's good. That comes at a random witnessing. As you witness, you say you do 25 of them, but you're going to get 10 credited. Comes randomly, so it will depend on how many witnesses you had in that group that you're going to actually get paid out for, right? So I guess what that's going to do is spread out for people that maybe have a weaker antenna, a weaker device, and those that have stronger devices that were taking more witnessing. It's going to spread that out a little more and kind of equalize the helium spread through the hotspots that are coming on board. Now, remember, today, as of this date, we're well over 200,000. I don't know, I forgot exactly what the number is. But we're over 200,000 now. We're coming on 2,000 a day. So let's just do the math on that. What are we going to be at now between here and a year? We're going to be pushing. Well, if we're at 2,000 a day in a month, then we're doing 60,000 a month, right? So 600,000 in 10 months. So then you're going to jump to well, you got 660, 720,000 more hotspots will come online. And I expect to see more than that. I expect to see close to 1 million between here and a year. Now, what's coming out? They're really ramping up production. We're being promised a lot from RAC and CalChip, which, they're really kind of poo-pooing on the people that have actually been waiting since April. And I'm a little bent on that too, because we've been there. But helium could do something about that, but that has nothing to do with POCV11, so let's get back to that. What's the other thing going to do? Well, POCV11 is going to allow the local structures to adapt in the laws, well, let's put it this way. They're going to be able to adapt more to laws and changes in laws going forward. And that's kind of, like we talked about, that's what they desired from the very beginning, so they didn't have the same ending that Napster has. So when's POCV11 going live? Well, it's going to start this on the 18th. So it'll start going into effect. So those of you that really have not adjusted your antennas yet, or your actual location, put them in the right actual location, they're spoofing or trying to game, that's going to start restricting, okay? Some say the reason that the HNT currency is going down is for these new rules coming in. I don't think that's a problem. Some say, well, it's China because they've banned cryptocurrency, and so they're dumping HNT. I don't believe that's a problem either, because if you look at actual helium manufacturers that have recently been approved, they're for China only. And if you go on and you look at China, the network on the Helium network, Helium Explorer, you'll see that they still exist in China. So I don't think you're going to see them go away. It's our opinion here that they're not really going to go away. This is more of a move from the CCP, the government of China, eliminating the people like us, the actual community that helium was made for, from actually participating in it, and the government's going to participate. And I think you're going to see more of that. And I think that's why maybe the government's going to bring in helium, because they can actually then benefit from helium. But at the same time, it's taking away from the people's network, and now it's becoming a government's network, right? And so that's a concern we have. At the end of the day, the government can only set up so many. It has to use the people, and that's the good part about this. So we don't like what they're doing, or if we feel insecure about data and where it's being sent or being used, what kind of data it is. Right now, we're being promised that the data is going to be more of a type of data. It's not going to be personal data, right? There's various aspects of environmental data, etc. So if they do start to abuse that, we can always just unplug them. We, the community, can just come together and unplug them. Now, the question comes in, well, what if they offer more money to people? Will they keep it plugged in to have that money coming in, especially what's on the outset for the economy? And let's talk about that a little bit right now. What's coming? Well, we know that there are electricity issues. They're already taking place. Look at California, for example, as well as there's other countries we could sit and talk about. It's a whole different video. But I want to talk about just basically, there is an agenda in that whole Davos group to reduce the type of energy we use today, and to put renewable energies in place. Well, that's fine and dandy. I mean, we could argue that either way, because what are you going to do now with the renewable energy, like the solar panels and the batteries for the electrical cars, etc.? Where's that waste go? So you could argue that, but that's not what we're doing here today. The problem we're going to have is that during this transition period, there's a transition, there's this leap from going from oil-based or coal-based type of fuels to renewable energies. But what do we have in between? Nothing. There's nothing in between. So we're going to have this huge gap, or we're going to have this collapse of not having energy. So they're going to start having energy blackouts. How's that going to affect us if you're hooking up your hotspot for helium? Will internet be blacked out? Yes. Will you have electricity? No, you'll probably go through times without electricity. Countries like El Salvador, though, I'm sure are going to fare this very well. They're already thinking ahead about this. So I guess we might all end up in El Salvador. Well, I guess that's kind of an extreme measure too. There are ways we can prepare for that, and that's going to be another video that we're going to talk about. But those are concerns we need to address going forward. Now, let's get back to where are we going with helium. Let's keep going back here to our helium news. Freedom 5 shipped their first 5G miners, so they should be starting to set up shortly. They're starting to hook up, go online now, right? And be aware for those 5G coming out. Now, remember, they are not compatible with the 4Gs. They are a completely different network. And the reason 5G is so beneficial, that you have to understand, is that the infrastructure for governments to put 5G in is very, very expensive. So the Helium network with 5G actually offers a great benefit. The governments can jump on board, as well as, well, I should say more, the telecom communications industry can get on board and using, like AT&T is supposedly negotiating right now, or this time, with Helium. That's what we're hearing. That comes from the Helium CEO, right? So let's keep going here. The Microsoft Azure, so IoT Hub joins the console family. So basically, the Microsoft Azure IoT Hub is Microsoft's cloud-hosted dashboard for communication between IoT applications and in devices, helping accelerate IoT deployments and management. Okay, so Microsoft jumping on board the Helium network as well. The Helium app 3.6.0, the release, it's going to have some more benefits to it and more security aspects to it. Here's some things I want to get to here. You have the Uplink episode with Ihub taking place. You have the Crystal Kings paragliding pilot program. This is what I want to get to. This is interesting because these Crystal Kings pilot, the paragliding pilot program, basically what they did was this. They went looking for these GPS signals because these pilots, when they're paragliding, they jump off the mountains and paragliding, they get lost. And they use GPS systems, but sometimes with GPS systems, if anybody has GPS, you know that one of the difficult things about GPS, like a Garmin, whatever, we have a Garmin, we go into the jungle, and that baby dies. I got to take so many batteries with me, and it just dies within the day. If we have it on all the time, so it can track us where we're going into, where we're coming out of, by time, after 4 hours or so, we're changing out batteries. You can get some that last a little longer, but generally speaking, your batteries in a GPS don't last more than a day, or maybe 24 hours, depending on how you set it up for its pings, right? So what LoRaWAN offers through Helium is they offer a much, it's cheaper actually, the device. Well, I guess the device is about the same, about $500-600. Well, if you get a good GPS though, you're talking over $1,000. What they do is they went out and set up these mobile solar panel mobile hotspots, and they sent up 3, and they went out and did this test, and they actually were able to track people up to 90 kilometers away. So if you're talking about that was the longest that they had the reading, right? I think it was 80 miles actually, to be more specific, 80 miles away. I'm sorry, 80 miles away. For the most part, they were 30 to 45 miles away, but you can track for up to 80 miles away. Now that has to be a clear, open signal. They put these devices on high points, and then the people went down or actually went across. And so what happened was that you could actually signal straight across. And what they go down and they're under trees or their body's on top of it. Here's something I didn't realize that you could actually do. You just take one of these mobile devices, and there's a way to make Helium mobile, which is a whole other video. You could take the device and carry it. You can put it on a helicopter, and you can bring that with you, and you can actually fly closer to the person and track that person if they have a Helium tracker on. Those are advantages coming in for search and rescue that I never even fathomed would be possible. So this is just more ideas that are coming out of Helium. And this is somebody who actually had no idea of Helium, was searching for something better than GPSs, and came across Helium, came across other things to try them out, and came across and tried the Helium test. And he's sold on it. In fact, this one gentleman that's mentioned here that represents Crystal Kings paragliding, he actually stated in this video I watched that he his whole life is dedicated to in Helium. So he's out connecting hotspots and buying hotspots himself. You have the telecom. This is interesting here. Telecom Liechtenstein, forgive me if I pronounce that wrong, it's German, I believe, joins the People's Network. Now, this is a telephone company that actually exists in the country of Liechtenstein. Forgive me on this. We're going to jump over and see where that's located because I didn't even know this country existed, and I thought I was pretty good at my geography. Jumping back up real quick here, I want to just go over something.